From day one, we are told who we should be, how to live, and what's acceptable. Before we even have a chance to discover ourselves, our society has already drawn those lines for us. But what happens when those lines are keeping us from knowing and embracing who we truly are? Welcome to Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox, a podcast about unpacking and unlearning everything that's kept you from living as your true self. Through honest conversations about your internal emotional landscape, sexuality, coming out later in life, relationships, and the journey to self-acceptance, we break free from the boxes we never chose. Welcome to Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox. Today I have on a very special guest that is actually my spiritual life coach named Angela. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here and to share you with my audience. So just a little background of my relationship with Angela. I met Angela through a friend, Michelle Flamer. It's been about 1.5 years that Angela and I have been working together. I went through a pretty dark night of the soul period, the summer before last, and Angela came into my life at that time, and we've continued working together on really a spiritual journey, because I can say my journey has been one much more on the human side of things. So I have done so much work and so much therapy and so much figuring things out, and I haven't done as much work in the spiritual realm. And so Angela has come in and really been alongside of me as I've been going through a lot of growth in that area. I'd love for you, Angela, just to share a little bit about how you became a spiritual life coach.
Yeah. So I've always had spiritual gifts ever since I was a child. As a young girl, my mom actually reminded me when I was a teenager and young adult that I could actually see spirits, and saw her father after he had passed away, and kind of a confusing yet calming experience for me. I also would dream a lot about people who had passed away that I had never met before, family members. And so I think that they have stayed with me since I've been born and had these gifts. And then I became a teenager and life got distracting. I didn't really attend to or exercise those gifts. And as I become a young adult, my mom went through something that was very difficult emotionally, and just going through a really hard time in her life. And during that time, at the time, I didn't realize it was channeling, but I was channeling for her. And she was kind of one of my first real testaments to being able to channel things that I didn't know about. Like, a lot of people would say, well, it's kind of easy. It's your mom, like, your family, you know her very well. But I was channeling things from her father that I didn't know at all about. And I would oftentimes call her and say, like, I don't know why this is happening, but this is what I'm experiencing. And I'm smelling, flowers was a big thing. He was a smoker. So that was something that I just, for some reason, I would have these senses or dreams or channeling experiences about things that only she could validate. And they were very powerful. That actual validation came through because I knew my grandfather as a smoker my whole life, and he passed away at a young age. And he used to wear hair gel or some sort of a hair product that was called tres flores. So 3 flowers. And that was just something that was like, I never knew that. My mom said he would go to the store and like seek out this particular hair product, and not many people knew that he wore it. So they were just they were tokens. They were treasures that only my mom knew about, and very few people. And so this started happening more and more. I had another grandfather who I was very, very close with pass away, and he started coming through in channel sessions, in dreams. He would actually gift me with messages for my family members. And it felt very much like that was the intention of his messages. And so this just kind of started developing, and I started going like, hey, this is happening more often. Like, what does this mean? And I just dove into reading, and at the time it wasn't so much the internet, but, reading books and listening to things where I could, and educating myself on what does this mean? What does this gift mean? And how what is the purpose of this for me? And so I like to kind of say that I'm a little self-taught, self-directed, listening to my own intentions and purposes and what I thought was my gift wasn't intended for. And COVID happened, and I started a business that felt very intuitive. It's a crystal jewelry business. And I kind of dove into that. And as I was doing this business and becoming more intentional in just my work and my intentions with making jewelry that was healing for people and understanding kind of a different modality of healing, I began meditating a lot daily, very heavily, and having more and more channel sessions. That's sort of how this started. I've started offering family and friends, very close family and friends, channeling sessions or intuitive readings, if you will. And then I just exercised that muscle and it became stronger and stronger. I know now that I am an Akashic Records reader, which means that I can uh, intuitively feel somebody's life path. And I met a beautiful shaman, and she trained me to take shamanic journeys for soul retrievals, which I won't go into depth about, but just kind of, learning and growing and evolving and ascending myself, going through, we all kind of have trauma at some point, right? So just being able to navigate that and heal from that, but do so in a way that wasn't just, as you explained already, the human side of healing, the counseling and the brain work, which is very important, but really on a soul level. Through that journey and walk myself, I now am able to help and assist others do the same.
Yes, you certainly can. And you certainly do. I love your story. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, where I think this would be interesting for the audience that I have is to look at the relational aspect of connections between people. There's a lot of words that are thrown around. I work with the late in life community, so women who are coming into their sexuality later in life. And there are a lot of very intense emotions as humans that we are feeling. And, people start to use words like, this is a soulmate, or is this a karmic connection I'm having? Or maybe this is a twin flame connection that I'm having with this person. So, there are all these words thrown around, and I'm not really sure people know what the difference is between all of these different types of connections, but I would love to highlight a little bit about these different kinds of connections that we can have with other people. So, starting with the most basic one that I hear a lot is like the soulmate, right? Like, I met my soulmate.
Mm-hmm.
And that feels to people like that's the biggest thing and the best thing, and I'm sure it feels really wonderful, and I've had those really good feelings too. But, my idea of soulmate is like that we have many soulmates. So when you meet someone who really, energetically is vibing with you, that's amazing. And, there also might be so many more people out there that also would do that. But I want to hear from you, like, what is a soulmate?
Yes. What a great question that has probably a bigger answer than you're asking for. But I think I'll start out by saying this. Intuitives, there's all kinds of different intuitives. And the beautiful part about this work, as is the work that you do, is that we all have different unique gifts that we pick up on, we translate, we interpret. What I might get in an intuitive reading or a very deep channeling session could be different than a different energy worker or intuitive. And so I like to start out by saying that there is no box, right? Which kind of goes along with your theme of unbox yourself, right? There's no real box to these terms, nor is there a box to the way that we see the spiritual world or side of things. And so I want to start out by saying that. I also want to kind of maybe describe ahead of time some verbiage. So that way, I work with a lot of people that are just like, I know that I want to become enlightened. I know that I want to ascend. I know that I want to evolve. I know that I want to grow, or I know I need something. I just don't know what that is. So I work with a lot of people that just are starting kind of from scratch in this spiritual evolution journey. So I like to make sure that people, while we're using these terms and words, kind of understand what I'm referring to as a foundation. So I like to explain things that we have that two-footed journey you referenced earlier. We have our human experience, which is our day to day. It's the high emotions. It's the working 9 to 5 or whatever we do. So that is our human experience. It's how we pay our bills. It's all the logistics and real life reality. And then we have our spiritual foot. That's the other foot in this two-footed journey. Our spiritual foot is, I refer to that as our most aligned or our highest path, or another term for that I use a lot is our highest timeline. And so this really means that if I were to do all of the things that I'm really here to do as a soul being, that's that path, right? And that path is very much connected to our, what I call our higher self. So we all have a version of ourselves that kind of lives in, if we were to get a visual for that, like in the ethers, right? Lives in this sort of higher place. And this is the version of us that really is the most in purpose. And so when I refer to our higher self or our higher timeline or our, spiritual journey or spiritual foot, that's what I'm referring to. And so to now go back and kind of answer your question, what is a soulmate? From my perspective, in terms of channeling and really being shown and helped to understand what this is over time, we do have a lot of soulmates in this lifetime. And that's the beautiful part about that. So to me, a soulmate is somebody who is soul family. And that can mean a friend, family, daughter, mother. It can mean a partner. So we do have a lot of soulmates, and they're already pre-chosen before we come into this life. And they really are the ones that we feel our most authentic selves with. So that is what a soulmate is in my interpretation.
That makes sense. Okay. So something that you and I have worked on a lot is around this idea of, you know, a mirror. So another person that you are connected to mirroring things back to you, or mirroring things to you that you then believe about yourself, these ideas you have about yourself that are coming from a mirror from this other person. That might not have anything to do with them and what's happening with them. I
Mhm.
really love this idea, and I'd love you to explain it, just because I think it's such a amazing tool for being able to grow and get to know yourself as well. I just love this idea of like the mirroring. So can you explain that?
Yes. So I love the concept of mirrors because, I use a lot of analogies in my work because, again, I work with a lot of people who are just kind of starting out in this journey, and into deeper understanding of themselves and their higher self. And so a lot of analogies help people digest. Sometimes I talk about how spiritual work is like taking a big bite of like steak, right? And it's like interchangeable if you're, vegan, but you really have to chew it down. You have to swallow it. Your stomach has to digest it. And so that's really spiritual work in a nutshell. And so analogies help that digestion process. And so kind of came up with this idea of a mirror because we all look in the mirror physically in our physical real world, and sometimes we like what we see and sometimes we don't. And I think that most people in our life path are mirrors to reveal and show to us the things about ourselves in our journey that we have yet to learn. And once we've learned those things, the mirrors become less kind of in your face, right? They get a little filter, right? And we're like, oh, kind of like that now. So they kind of really start to become easier to see, and then eventually they can go away completely. So these are essentially life lessons that we are shown a mirror within people that are in our life path. And so they're hard to see. A lot of times we talk about mirrors and it's kind of like, oof, that's a tough one. I don't really know if I want to look at that right now. And a lot of people choose not to. But the people who are willing to look into the mirror and self reflect and be able to see it as a mirror instead of, why is this person always doing that? I don't know why they make me feel A, B, or C. Instead of that, it's really asking ourselves, what about this person or what about this situation is causing this kind of reaction within me? And how can we peel all of those layers back and work down towards the bottom on a soul spiritual level and really try to learn this lesson so that it doesn't continue to come back? Because that's how the universe works. It's going to keep showing you that lesson. And each time, if you don't learn it, it's going to get harder and harder. So that's essentially what a mirror is.
Yeah, and I what I found interesting in working with the mirror that I had, which I'm happy to just self-disclose, was one that was sending me a message that I am not important. I am not seen, I am not prioritized, uh, I'm not cared about. That was a very painful message that the mirror was giving me. And I think through the work that we've done that I think I've heard you use the language of like a core need,
Hmm.
if that's the right wording. Yeah. That we kind of discovered, and that even though I was having this mirror in this one situation with this one person, I started to notice once we uncovered this core need, which I think you said was really to be like seen,
Hmm.
like really to be like witnessed and seen. Then I started seeing that mirror in like all these other places too. And it's not the kind of thing where it's like, okay, well, you need to like work on that need. It's more just like, this is one of your core needs and period. Like you need this. So it's like more acceptance and embracing it instead of trying to like work your way out of something and to not need that. So I love the mirror because I don't know, I think it could really, give you this message about things about yourself that you might just need to embrace.
Absolutely. And we all of our core needs, everybody has them. Maybe it's one or two or three. I mean, it's typically when we really break it down, it's only a couple. They come out of our traumas. They come out of what we didn't get at some point in time. And so once we can identify what those core needs are, our life becomes so much easier. Um, to be able to have those moments of self reflection to be like, hey, I'm having such a reaction with this situation or this person because in this moment, my core need is not being met. So, yeah, it's a big self realization.
Yeah. And then to take that into just relationship in general, we have relationships with ourselves, right? So it's like you witness your own core need. And then also it gives you a way to connect to other people about what you need if you are comfortable communicating, like what your core needs are, and kind of seeing where you can meet. Like, can somebody fulfill some of your core needs? Are they absolutely unable to in any way? Which might be very painful. Like if they can't in any way, I imagine that would be, almost like a very painful relationship to stay in.
Yes. And I think that kind of segues into talking about these spiritual relationships, right? So we have soulmates, we have karmic relationships, we have a term that I'm learning not to lean into and use too much, which is twin flames. That's a very trendy term right
Mhm.
now. And so when someone is not meeting those needs, or really should I say, not working to meet those needs, not willing to see what your needs are and then work towards that, then that person is not a twin flame. I'm going to use the term divine partner. To me, that resonates so much more a divine partner. And, that person is likely in your life because they're there to reveal a mirror to some degree. Sometimes they are, I will say, kind of breaking down the relationship differences, like a karmic relationship to me is a relationship that we can't necessarily get away from in our lifetime, right? So a karmic relationship would be a child relationship, a parent relationship, a somebody that's in your near circle that isn't necessarily someone that you can just say like, hey, I'm kind of done with you, let's move on, because a karmic relationship feels sticky. to the energy. Karmic relationships can tend to follow you lifetimes and lifetimes. So they're typically really put in your divine universal path because you're working towards a bigger lesson that takes more lifetimes than just one. Right. So those are the sticky people. Those are the sticky lessons, for lack of a better term. So that's how I would describe a karmic relationship. They're usually pretty deep wounds. So they're things that are like, I'm really trying to look in the mirror here. I'm trying to do my work, but for some reason, it's just not feeling resolved. And so that would be more of a karmic relationship. A twin flame relationship, like I said, I don't love the term, the way it's being used, particularly because it kind of indicates that there's just one. There's just one soul in this lifetime that is like the perfect match. I don't believe that to be true. I do believe in a divine partnership. A divine partnership to me really symbolizes two souls that are in a commitment and an agreement, not just in the human experience, but on a soul level to doing work together in this lifetime in a positive, like in a whole frame of being, right? It's mostly positive. We're working towards resolution, evolution, ascension together. And so that to me is what a divine partnership is. And again, I do believe that it's not just one soul that does that for us.
And also, you may or may not have a karmic connection to a divine partner. Is that right?
In my experience, typically when we're talking about a divine partnership, that is for the greater good of two souls. Now, a karmic relationship is also, but it's typically not going to feel the same. It's not going to manifest the same as a divine partnership feels. A divine partnership as a whole feels good. You will feel very like when you're together, you lose time. Like there's no words. There's like, it might feel like I don't know what happens, like a magnetism, right? And I will say that divine partnership can manifest in this lifetime. But if one or both of those people in that divine partnership aren't willing to do the work, that divine partnership won't actually manifest to its full potential in this lifetime. So there's, kind of variables that can always detour. I mean, we have a lot of free will. Free will, I can do a channeled session, an intuitive reading on somebody and essentially see their whole life, not maybe whole life path, but a good majority of what their most divine path is. But if at any moment they choose to go left instead of right, and not follow kind of more of a divine path, it can completely change the trajectory of their timeline, right? So free will is always at play.
Okay, so now let's go to, you have this um, divine connection with somebody. You have this, when you spend time together, you have no idea the time is even going by. There's this magnetism. One of the two people is not willing to do the work. They're not looking to see the mirror. They're not willing to do the work. And that's their free will, right? And that leaves a painful connection, really for both people. But I guess maybe if one person wants to do the work and the other person isn't really willing, it can leave a lot of pain. And when you have this connection with somebody, and I'm trying to figure out, is this like the karmic, like it's the karmic piece that this person is like always going to be in your realm. Like even if you're not going to be in a relationship with them, they're always going to be close to you. Even if it's just in your heart, you're always going to feel them. Even if they choose free will, they're not going to do the work. They're not going to grow with you. What can you do if you're in that situation and you're just in so much pain? Like what options, like how do you live with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I love this because we're diving deeper and deeper into this, abyss of universal language and the spiritual journey. So I love where this conversation is going. I'm making concerted effort to also try to keep this digestible for your listeners, right?
Yes.
So I guess what I would say to that is yes, can there be karmic lessons embedded within a divine partnership? Yes. You noticed I used the word lessons versus a karmic relationship. So, yes, can there be karmic lessons embedded into a divine partnership? Yes. What happens if the other person, one person's willing to do work and the other person is not willing to do work or not willing to look into their mirrors? I would say that, there has to be a conscious decision and a decision within your own heart and energy to let that person go. And this is the really hard part about feeling the magnitude of a divine partnership. This is not your average relationship. This is not your average connection. When you have a divine partnership or the potential for a divine partnership, like I said, this is time is lost. You go into a bubble, you just consume each other, right? And so when that happens and someone's not willing to do their work, then the other person essentially will have to let go of that. And that's difficult to do because when we're talking about divine partnerships, we are also talking about these two people that each have their own higher self, in which their higher selves are typically in union. Okay, so if we're talking about an earth plane and a cosmic plane, on the earth, they're not connecting. On the cosmic, in the cosmos, they're connected. So this is very difficult to
Mm.
navigate. And so I would say that it definitely takes time. I do believe that when people have a deeper understanding of how these relationships on a divine and spiritual level work, it does make it a little bit easier. The people that I've worked with seem to be able to release it a little bit easier, knowing that there is a deeper purpose, a bigger universe that we're talking about. A lot of people will kind of go like, in your brain, you're like, why can't I let this person go? Can't I, they stick with me. I think about them all the time. I don't know what to do. And then once they start kind of understanding the spiritual journey and what these relationships essentially mean, on spiritual level, then they can start to begin to untie themselves.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can say this for myself because I've had 33 years of therapy where I've been, in the seat as the patient essentially.
Yeah.
And like, there's so many things I know about myself. I know myself so well, but it wasn't really until coming into this realm with you of like the soul and the spiritual realm where I was able to understand this on a completely different level that that I could kind of work within, whereas on the emotional human level I was all out. Like there was nothing. Like I was there was nothing left for me to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And we started working together, but I do, hopefully you can affirm this too, is that a big piece of the beginning of that for you was doing a soul retrieval. I mean, I think that was a big shift that then allowed your energy and your soul to kind of get a breath of fresh air and then like start being able to do some of that work. And a soul retrieval is it changed my life when I did one with my shaman. And basically what this means is when we have certain traumas that happen in our life, one of the ways our soul can cope is by breaking kind of pieces away from itself. In the shamanic world, this just means you essentially start losing pieces of your soul as you get older and go through your life. Without these pieces, eventually you will be left when you're starting to feel things like I'm just so lost, or I don't feel like myself, or I'm physically ill, or I can't find joy, or I feel empty, or I'm doing everything but nothing else is working, right? So these are kind of some of the symptoms or consequences of soul loss. And so, by doing a soul retrieval, this means that a shaman does a shamanic journey for these pieces of your soul and essentially brings them back to your soul. There's a ceremonial process to this. And after this is done, many people say that they feel whole, or some people just have this kind of, it's almost like an awakening. Your soul feels awake again. And from that place, you can then do the work, whether that's therapy, whether that's, energy work or intuitive work from a more whole place.
Yeah. Yeah. We did do that. And that did happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I have one more question. Let me see if I can figure out how to ask it. So for people who are very interested in the spiritual path and, you know, that this thing, I know you said you work with a lot of people who are new and who are kind of just stepping into this for the first time, and they want to evolve, or they want to ascend, or they want to enter into, I've heard it spoken of as like, something outside of like this human experience that we're in every day. Like I want to enter into like, what I can't see kind of. Is it important, let's say, to have both of these areas being dipped into? So in other words, like your human journey and your soul journey. Can you can you kind of skim the human journey? So in other words, you don't know much about what is causing all of the things that are happening for you, but you want to ascend. You want to kind of get up here and kind of rise above it. Like you kind of want like all this human BS that is so tiring. I mean, who needs it? Can I rise above and ascend above it if I do this work? Or, is it important to have both? So that's my question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say that, there is moments in time where we are really on one foot at a time in terms of this human foot or our soul foot, our spiritual foot. There are times where both feet are on the ground. Even as, somebody who is an intuitive and does this work, I would say that there are times when I just need my human foot on the ground for a while. Energy and spiritual work can also feel heavy and like a lot. And sometimes we just need to take a break from it, right? So, and that's okay too. So I think to answer your question on the opposite end, yes, I think that we can, if we're really spending most of our time on our human experience foot, but we kind of know there's something more that we want, I would say you can definitely start somewhere, tap into something, whatever is resonates for you. You can start anywhere and start to learn more about the spiritual side of this journey so that, inevitably you can become the best version of you. And I think that that is really what we're all here for. We all need purpose. Um, we all are destined to do our purpose work and to do it in a way that feels intentional and serving and helps us to ascend. And when we die, when we graduate, when we move on from this lifetime, the goal is that we've used this earthside classroom to the best of our ability and we have evolved our soul. And whether we go into another lifetime or we're done, that's the goal.
I'll stop you there. I could keep going with more questions, but I'll stop there. I think that that's so much good information. I would love for you to share just where people can find you. I'll also drop it into the show notes.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm on Instagram and I have a website. And my website is I of Zion.com. And that's I like eyeball. So EYE of Zion.com. My underscore of Zion. That's my Instagram. And so, my capacity for this work, I don't do a lot of advertising and marketing for myself. I primarily operate on word of mouth because this work is very sacred to me and it's not something that I do for profit. It is something I do because I'm passionate about helping people see themselves and see their own journey. And so, yeah, you go onto my Instagram, you're not going to see a whole lot of this work, but yes.
Your jewelry is there.
All my jewelry's on my Instagram, and on my website, I do have my intuitive offerings. So there's a list of all of those offerings and a description of what they are. And then I also offer free consultations for people who are like, I really don't know what I need, but can I at least talk to you for 15 minutes and kind of see where to start? So that's available as well.
Thank you so much for your time. I hope this is so helpful for people out there that are throwing some of these words around. And, I hear people saying, I can't stop thinking about this woman and I don't even know her. And then she speaks to somebody else, some kind of an intuitive that says, well, maybe she's your twin flame. And so, I get this feedback from people and I'm like, oh my gosh, like these words are just thrown around. What do they even mean? Like, what is happening here?
Yes.
So I love that you're, clearing some of this up for people out there.
Yeah. Thank you for providing a space to do that. Thank you so much.
Take good care.
Yeah, you too.
Bye, Angela.
Bye.
Thank you for spending this time with me on Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more folks find these conversations. If you're ready to unbox from something that's keeping you stuck, I would love to support you. You can find the application to the show at unboxyoursexuality.com. Let's stay connected. Find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Lesbian Curiosity Coach. Give me a follow and join the conversation. Remember, we only have this one time through. Why not unbox yourself and let your true self shine in all its beautiful glory?